the future of community is huge. It can make or break what a company is for, especially if they want, if a company, you'd like your company, your business to grow in the long run.
Hey everyone, I'm Joel Primack, the host of the Community Led Growth Show. Today I'm joined by Pierce John Ramirez, Community Manager at ProductLed. Thank you so much for being on the show, Pierce.
Uh, Thanks for having me, Joel.
You're very welcome. Well, first off, why don't you give our
Yep.
listeners a quick 30-second intro about yourself?
Okay. Pierce John Ramirez, the most and the current community manager at ProductLed, and been in the position for only a few months. It's been quite the learning experience. I the only interaction I have had with communities before is via gaming, but since then I've learned a lot and uh been having fun since the start.
That's great. Well, it's definitely important to have fun in your job. And
Mhm.
on that role of kind of what got you into managing, and such, what characteristics or traits do you feel like made you a good community manager, as well as what you see are good positive traits to have in another person's community manager role?
Yep. Um, so the things I have is one, I'm quite involved. Um, I could switch being between being an introvert and an extrovert. So yeah, I guess what they call an ambivert. And since I have that customer service background, it's quite good to have that positive scripting skill, just in case you have to say bad news, things like that. But uh, but still, you have to be truthful, obviously. So you have to be able to finesse with your verbiage, how you say things, how you question, and also critical thinking is very important. So you can help members or drill down to what members really need, because sometimes they just are saying, hey, could you do this and this, and then it's all because of just one reason, and if you do that one thing, then that's the time they'd be satisfied. Even if you do all the other smaller things, it still won't be enough. So you have to use your critical thinking on what do they really need. Pay attention, be involved, um always be available 24/7. Since we're managing the community via Slack, I even have Slack on my phone or on my wife's phone, because sometimes my kid yoinks my phone out of the way and then plays her own games.
Fair enough. I like that you're always being prepared with the backup phone. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people are gonna take that one and be like, "Ooh, I need to start doing that," or have it on their iPad or some other device too when their kid
Mhm,
inevitably takes their phone away. That's a good one.
mhm.
Um, on that note, you said you extremely involved in your community, and being involved is great. But from that, what are examples of keeping it human that you guys have done within product led's community so that you know that things are resonating and being at that
Mhm.
utmost human level?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's one very important thing for me is to keep things human. It Once people know that it's a person that they're speaking to on the other end, whether it's chat, whether it's email, or whether it's through a phone call, their expectations are set that you will not know everything 100%. So that eases the load off of me, because even if I have admin capabilities, even if I have access to the inner workings of the product led team. There's only so much I can do, and so only so much that I can give. So when I keep it human, I do it in such a way that I set their expectations first. That, hey, this is the first time I'm doing this. Um, what exactly do you need? That's where the critical thinking part comes in. Also, it wouldn't hurt to always welcome new members. Thank them for being there. Always mix up your verbiage. Um, and just don't sound robotic, even if it's via Slack announcements or via chat. And always have an ear out. Yeah. Even if you're active more or less 24/7, but because there will be times, especially if you're a community manager, and you're doing it alone. I'll have a team of people soon. Um, that before you close your eyes, you have to respond to someone, or that there's an incident. And then when you wake up, there's like a boatload of notifications that you have to respond to. And that's part of the deal. It's one of the points in the contract that you signed. So they're in it, uh you should be in it not as a day-to-day 9 to 5 job. Hey, I've clocked out, this is done, blah blah blah. No, it you have to take ownership of it. And by taking ownership, including the bad, the good, the the anything that the members throw at you, you have to be able to handle with the presence of mind. And it wouldn't hurt to keep notes about your members and always to read back through the thread, just so you know, just so they know that there's a human on the other side who's paying attention to them, because people like um feeling special. And automatically, if you pay attention to the small things about them, they automatically feel special.
Very true. So on that note, that in picture that you just kind of painted for us of you wake up in the morning, you may have a handful of emails, you may have some Slack notifications. How do you prioritize those action items? Because as a former community manager, and for all the other community managers out there, I know that you can often have tons of things at all
Mhm.
times. So I was just curious how you manage your time and then how you prioritize items to help others listening and help others with their time management and make sure that they're getting like top priority things done, and
Mhm.
not getting kind of like bogged down in the noise.
Yep. Um, Typically, I would check what, well, you considering how big our community is, I can't do this all the time. But it always depends on your presence of mind, which is again extremely important. You have to be able to discern which one is the most urgent. If it's a login issue or something else that they need to reactivate their account, you have to do it as soon as possible, because they can't engage in the community. What's the point of them being a member if they can't do that? But if it's something that I just want to change how my name looks, uh, it's something that can wait until you've had your caffeine in your system. So uh, so I could prioritize it by that. Another way to think about it is, since the entire organization is remote, uh, take note of their time zones, whether they're still awake or not. Usually, the most recent ones are the ones that you can mostly expect uh, to respond to you quickly. Uh, but to summarize everything, I do Slack first and then emails, because it's um let's say it's I've learned through my customer service years that people's expectations are already set, that emails take longer for you to get a response versus that of quick messaging. So
Yeah.
that's a bit of your buffer.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. And that's a great point, is kind of differentiating and accepting what the norm is for the communication channel in terms of that time route. That's a great call
Mhm.
out. I love that. So switching gears a little bit, I've heard a little rumors that you have a secret little system that you've built for the product-led team. But without giving away your secret sauce or anything for us, what metrics do you measure to know the health of your community? Um, and what are those kind of like key things to know for at least you guys when you guys talk about, here's how we know our community is healthy and thriving?
Uh-huh. Yes, I built a system. I wouldn't call it like a secret weapon, but I'd like to keep it within the bounds of my work. At the same time, to answer the questions about the matrices, there's no specific metric. It depends on what you want to happen in the community. If you want for the community to grow, to expand, then you'll give more weight to invitations, to referrals. If you want more engagement, then you'll give more weight to relevant responses, thread posts. It's a question of what do you want to happen. Now, if you want an overall thing, you still have to weigh which one is more important. For example, um, as an overview, uh, if you're looking into growth, or towards growth more, um, you could score them like for every invitation it's 2 points, for every relevant post it's 1.5 points, for every relevant reply it's 1 point, things like that. And then you bring it all together, so you know who's the most active, blah blah blah. Always have everything organized, noted, so that when you aggregate, very important to aggregate and automate, um, it's easy to see at a glance who's doing what, and whether everything that they're doing is actually relevant, because there will be good replies, there will be bad replies, there will be good posts, there will be bad posts. Not all channels will reflect how healthy your community is, but at the same time you need them there to be accommodating to your members. Especially, for example, there's like shameless promotion chat where members can post anything about them, any shows that they have, books, blah blah blah. But you wouldn't really call that. Well, that's not really helpful to the health of the community, because there's one specific uh like target that you're going for. So if it's not relevant to the direction that you're going, you don't have to count it. So that also eliminates the noise that you have to sift through to measure the health of your community. So in short, the health of your community depends on where do you want it to go. So that will dictate the matrices or the metrics that you need to measure, and that will dictate the kind of engagement that you will have to do with your members.
Yeah, no, that's very true, especially when you talk about measuring what matters essentially,
Mhm.
and then getting and weighting those items that are most aligned towards that overall North Star metric to know the
Mhm.
health of your community. So I love that. Thank you. So I know that you mentioned earlier that you've only been in your role a few months now, full time at as a community manager at ProductLed. But from your early career as a community manager, and from what you've seen in the broader community space, when you've connected with
Hmm.
your peers, whatever you've read online and such. What do you think the future of community is?
The future of community is huge. Like, um, it's like it can make or break what a company is for, especially if they want, if a company, you'd like your company, your business to grow in the long run. It's its impact isn't immediately felt, especially if you have a small community or the engagement isn't on fire. Um, but talking about the future of community itself, I've read through books that it people weren't paying attention, or executives weren't paying attention to community all that much. So as long as you subscribe to their service, buy their product, doesn't really matter. But if you want, again, to thrive, to grow, and to have a great reputation, community is, I cannot stress this enough. It's extremely, extremely important, because that it likes it likes puts you it likes puts you on the front row seat to your growth in such a way that there's a hotline feedback, or there's a hotline from your customers, your clients, subscribers, what have you, to provide feedback. And depending on how you take that feedback, improve, recycle. So it's a positive feedback mechanism that will only make your business grow further. If you didn't have that community, each time that you need feedback, you'll have to run a survey, you'll have to blah blah blah. It's like, uh let's put this a bit more vividly. You know, the old Batman TV show, the campy
Yep,
ones, because
yep.
Commissioner
Resets
Gordon had,
POW.
yeah,
Yep.
Commissioner Gordon had like a red telephone straight to Batman. How many crimes could Batman have not saved if they didn't have that red phone? So it's like that's your red phone. The community is your red phone towards your growth. Hey, what do we need to do? Because you may be in the thick of it, doing R&D, um, the backstage stuff, things like that. At the same time, you're looking at it from a business perspective versus that of community members that have a red phone to you, that will give you the perspective of the frontliners, like or the people that are using your product. Even if you're using your product yourself, you might not be using it the same way, because you'd be, I like to call you somebody of or some sort of a power user, because you know the ins and outs. But not everybody knows the ins and outs of your product. Not everybody knows the specs of the phone. They're not the engineer, they're just using it. If it's something inconvenient for them, heck, why would they buy it? But if you don't know that it is inconvenient for them, how can you improve? That's where the community comes
Very true. And I think what you just described a little bit earlier in your reply was a perfect example of a flywheel for
in. Yeah.
growth, that it's because you have that pulse on your audience
Hmm.
that then you know exactly what they need almost instantaneously when they say they need it. And then
Hmm.
that allows you to always continuously be the first to market with what that audience needs.
Yep, exactly. At the same time, um, having that pulse also, other than being the flywheel, helps you get, uh, I've just suddenly cut off my own train of thought. Um, would help you give upcoming news. It allows you to hype up your own services, your own products, your own model. And hyping things up, especially from a marketing point of view, is great because even if they're not buying the product yet, who knows? They might just pre-order. So more investments, more, well, more money, more growth. So that's one more thing, and you're not even losing all that much because you don't have to sell anything even just yet. Because if you build that goodwill via that community, via your community, it will only do good for your business. Won't do anything negative for
I love that. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
it.
Before we wrap up, one last question. Even though that you're early in your community manager career, what are one to two things you would share with someone who's just starting off with community today? Either they're an entry level community manager or their
Mhm.
company is just launching community. What are some learnings that you've gathered and really learned, I guess, during your time that you would pass along to this person and or company?
Okay. Um, Number one is set and temper your own expectation. You can't expect a new community to just blow up. You can't expect your members to just be that involved. You can't expect yourself. You have to, this is extremely important. I made this mistake. You have to set expectations for yourself that you won't know everything and that you should always be open to learning, but not all of the advice that's thrown at you have to listen to, because not all of them um have your interest in mind. If you But if they're, even if came from somewhere else, if as long as it's reasonable, listen to it. Always be open to learn. Temper your expectations. Be humble. Don't be There's power in humility because it allows you to learn. In order to learn something, you have to accept first that you're stupid about it. So because you can't you won't be open to learning if you think that you know everything, right? uh uh well, that's an extreme way of putting it, but I think that drives home the point. um so one, temper expectations, yourself, for your community members, for the community, for the system, how you handle things. You can't expect to get all raving reviews. Expect most of them to be negative because that's how you improve. Negative feedback is a good thing because that's things that you can, those are action items that you can take action on. Positive feedback just means, hey, you're doing great, you don't have to do anything, so what do I do? um then the second thing is, uh be involved, be human. Don't be afraid to set your members expectations that, hey, I just got a vaccine shot, I'm having a fever, I won't be able to do any postings for the coming days. Just that one post would show them that there's a human there, and that uh, that's also a form of engagement in my mind, because it makes them it makes your members invest their thoughts on you, in the community. Hey, let's give him some space, he's still recovering, blah blah blah. Or um because being a community manager, you're you'll be a character, you'll be a celebrity in the community, to put it in some more understandable terms. And so being involved means that the community will have to accept you as you are as well. You should be always open for feedback, always have expectations set, under promise, over deliver, and that even with just that, as long as people know, which brings me to my second point, very important, or maybe it's the third, not really sure. Third point, always, 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 part of being involved, listen. Always listen, because people won't bring in their friends or be inviting other people to try out, be a member of the community if they're not being heard. Because what's the point of being a community if it's a dictatorship? It's not a community anymore. It's just a newsletter. Any company can do that,
Yeah,
right?
it's a megaphone.
It's just a megaphone. You don't have any feedback. So yeah, those are my tips. I've learned those are you could boil down everything that I've learned to those tips. Set expectations, be involved. Being involved involves includes always listening and being human.
Very nice. Those are great learnings for sure. And I'm sure everyone listening is definitely going to take those and turn them into action items for their community when they're building it. So thank you. Pierce, again, thank you so much for being on the Community Led Growth Show. If people want to connect with you or follow you after listening to this episode, what are the best channels and or handles for them to do so?
You can reach me through our socials. I also help in managing those. Product led in at LinkedIn. You could go to my LinkedIn profile. You could go to you could just email me pierce@productled.com. I also have I also help out in Twitter. You could also reach me through our product led Facebook page. Please don't go to my personal page. Um, and you can just jump in on the Slack community. It's free.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you very much for having me, Joel. You too.